Hey y'all, what is up? Keasbey here. So today we are going to be looking at a matchup between myself on Floowandereeze with a slightly updated build. I'll talk a little bit about that during the replays, against what is most likely going to be a meta powerhouse for the next little while, branded Tearalament. But before we get into that, don't forget to drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel for even more, and if you want to help us out that little bit extra, don't forget to check out the link in the description to pick yourself up a playmat. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the games. Alright, so for game one, we are going second, and our opponent has opened up pretty well. We have completely missed any sort of hand trap to stop them, and they are just going to go off with standard branded Tearalament plays. Sending Shadal, Beast, get an extra draw. They're going to fire off Branded Fusion. Usual stuff. So something interesting that the Shadals in this deck give it access to is Shadal Window, which would be really great against any other deck, but we are not any other deck. We do not need to special summon. Okay, so the Forbidden Droplets is a problem. The Ash Blossom, we have Magnificent Map to play around, and we can try to bait it with Duality. Or, alternatively, we can try to bait it with Prosperity as well. We are going to open with Duality here. Generally in a game one, by the way, off of Duality, we will end up grabbing that Advent. Generally in a game one situation, when I don't think Droll and Lockbird is a concern, I'll try to bait a badly timed Ash Blossom with a Duality first. The reason you would ever want to do Prosperity first is you can stack all the dead draws to the bottom of the deck so that you won't see them off Duality. There is a chance, since Duality shuffles, you could see the same dead draws on your Prosperity, but you know, it's kind of one of those weighing the risks against each other, trying to bait out an Ash Blossom, which they do have. Obviously we don't know, but so now we're going to fire off the Prosperity. They have seen Advent, so if they do have an Ash, they're probably not going to fire it off in response to this Prosperity. They will probably save it for the Advent. So we are going to grab Harpy's Feather Duster here. Again, they have two cards in hand. We can play around Ash 100% with Map, and because we have Eaglin, we've hard open M-Pen, and we have a Stree, that's fine. Effect Veiler is potentially a maybe issue, but we have Advent for that. So this is really the last problem that we have to deal with. So we're going to Feather Duster. You know, sometimes Feather Duster is MST. Don't be afraid to use it that way. We're going to fire off Map. This is standard Floowandereeze stuff. We are going to play under Ash Blossom for this entire combo. They are going to banish away the Eaglin. That's fine. That's actually going to let us immediately go into Rabina with Ash Blossom protection. So that was almost ideal. Just something to keep in mind, when this does happen, if they banish with the Mirror Jade, that doesn't negate. So as long as you have another bird in hand, you can just keep going. And opening with Eaglin, well, I don't know. They saw that we had Rabina banished, so it just wasn't the best play on their part. So now, still playing under Ash Blossom, we're going to fire off Stree, get that out of the graveyard so that they don't have follow-up for next turn. And we are going to make M-Pen. M-Pen, we are actually going to search for Unknown Winds. If they had Effect Veiler, we would have seen it by now, and Ash Blossom is no longer a concern. So they can Ash this, it's totally fine. We have a Game Mechanic Normal Summon and a Toucan. So I do make a mistake here. I did not check the graveyard, and I didn't realize they had another Aluber in graveyard. So we are accidentally going to proc the Aluber. The original game plan was get that off the field, and then hit in over Mirror Jade, kill it, lose the M-Pen, but we would have the trap so that we could go into a new M-Pen. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way, and in all honesty, we probably should have just left the window on the field because it's more of a detriment to our opponent at this point than it is to us. They can probably fuse it away fairly easily, but still, it would have just been better to have left that on the field, if anything. Again, learn from my mistakes moment. I have to point out my misplays. So we're just going to punch over one Aluber and pass. They're going to draw another Ash for turn. We are going to use M-Pen to kill the Mirror Jade. We don't particularly care about losing the M-Pen. We have access with Eaglin and a ton of chain blocks in here, or we have access with Stree Toucan if we want to go that route and search something else off Eaglin. We also have a Mega Monarch in hand, which is cool. Totally fine. So just so you know, the effect to special summon a Loober is directly linked to its effect to negate something on the field. So the effect to special summon a Loober when a fusion is destroyed, to be more specific. And you can only use one Loober effect per turn. So they can't choose to special summon when a fusion is destroyed and then not negate and search. You have to negate if you special summon that way. Just something to keep in mind when playing against this deck. And at the end of the turn, Mirror Jade blows up our end pen. But at this point, we're insulated from Ash. We're just going to send another Toucan because we have everything in rotation at this point. Grab an M pen, get one M pen. So this is why I'm now playing 2 M pens. You get some crazy stuff with unexplored winds, and I just like always having M pen access. We are going to banish the M pen, recover it with Toucan, and we will tribute that away for another M pen. And at this point, our opponent sees that we will assemble lethal shortly, and they will surrender. So that was game 1. We did it without D-Shifter. We did it without Statue. I thought it was pretty cool. I wanted to show it off. So let's get into game 2. So going into game 2, we will be going second this time. I want to talk a little bit about Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion, but I'll get to that in a second. It's a new card that I'm trying out in the side deck for the Tearalaments matchup. So when the Tearalaments are sent from hand or deck to graveyard, or field, when they're sent to graveyard in general by card effect, they have the effect to shuffle back into the deck and fusion summon. Ghost Belle, because they are shuffling from graveyard into the deck, can prevent this. So we are going to fire it off early here. We're trying to cut them off the Tearlament portion of the deck because the Tearlament traps are more of an issue than the Branded part of the deck. We're also firing it off early despite the fact that Ghost Belle can negate Lubellion because it also shuffles from graveyard into the deck. There is a chance they might have Paradise Branded, and because Ghost Belle negates an activation, not just the effect, Paradise Branded protects from that, but mostly because the Tearlament portion of the deck with its traps is more of an issue to us than playing through Masquerade and Mirror Jade Dragon. Granted, it will also give them access to Guardian Chimera, but, you know, it's make them take more steps instead of doing the simple one. We have one hand trap, unfortunately. So, you know, as mentioned, they're going to do all this. Get the Mirror Jade. And they're actually going to end without Branded or Red access. So we potentially have a chance. Unfortunately, D-Shifter came one turn too late, and we are entirely dependent on this Pot of Duality, more or less. So we're going to fire it off. Nothing. We are going to have to use Advent on the M-Pen to go into Rabina. And at this point, we just don't have enough to play through the one Mirror Jade activation, unfortunately. We're just going to call by the grave this on the off chance that we do survive, just to keep them off another Branded Fusion. But it is not looking good for us. So they're going to throw a ton of stuff in attack mode. This would actually be lethal with 8,400 on board, but the Advent saves us. Unfortunately, they're going to banish that, get that back, fire it off, and make ultimately a Masquerade Dragon, which we just have no means of doing anything about. So just so you know, even if we drew we surrender here. Even if we drew Dark Ruler off the top and negated everything, we would still have to pay the 600 to activate it. Advent only gives us 500, and that's on resolution, not on activation, so there was absolutely nothing we could do here. So let's go to game 3. Okay, so game 3, we are going first. We have finally drawn our Silver Bullet in Dimension Shifter on time. We're going to fire it off in the draw phase. There's absolutely no reason not to. As I've mentioned sometimes, if you have Called by the Grave and something that is ashable, you want to go ashable card first. If they chain Ash, Called by the Grave, and then chain to Called by the Grave D-Shifter. If they don't, just chain D-Shifter to whatever the ashable thing is. So we're just going to do standard Floowandereeze stuff. Another update to the deck, by the way, is we are on 2 copies of Toucan. I just like Toucan as a starter with map. I am going to say if you open this way, you actually want to reverse your chain order to go Chain Link from Rabina, Chain Link to Toucan. This guarantees that you will always get the Rabina back to hand, even if they imperm this, because Rabina will return by her own effect. So Rabina, no Ash, we're in a great spot. We're going to get M-Pen on the field. M-Pen, we're going to grab Unexplored Winds because we already have the trap. So we're going to summon Toucan here off of the M-Pen. It's already used its effect, but we just want the body. So now that we haven't used Eaglin yet, because we hard open the M-Pen, we can use it to grab Apex Avian just as a little extra insulation to our plays. So our opponent opened Twin Twister, so thankfully we have the Apex Avian. They're going to fire it off here. So there is an argument to be made that I could have let that resolve because they left Dreaming Town untouched. I just wanted to play it very safe and keep everything on field just in case I needed it down the line. More or less, this is because we're entirely insulated from the Tearlaments portion of the deck with Dimension Shifter. We can always resummon the Apex Avian if we need to with Dreaming Town. And again, I'm not really concerned about anything they can do with the branded portion of the deck. At worst, they make the Predaplant Dragostapelia. But first of all, a really important note, by the way, if they ever Dragostapelia an M-Pen, the floodgate effect of M-Pen, where your opponent cannot activate effects of special summon monsters in attack mode, still applies because Dragostapelia only prevents activated effects, and this is a continuous effect. Really important. I have another game that I might do a replay commentary over where that does come into play. But again, we're just going to negate this to play it a little bit safe. They're going to fire off Curtain. This is all fine. We don't really care. Just standard Despia stuff. Just a note, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it earlier, but Mirror Jade does not work under Dimension Shifter because its effect sends to graveyard for cost. They are going to attempt to leave the main phase here. We are going to fire off our Dreaming Town, and we would have searched for Ryza here, but they are going to surrender. Just to explain what we would have done here, we would have searched for Ryza, we would have recovered the Toucan, summoned the Toucan, gotten back Dreaming Town for next turn, and then summon the Ryza. We would have spun this back, and we would have put Dimension Shifter back on the top of the deck and tucked Ryza back in our hand. And that probably would have more or less been the game. We would have had them under a D shifter, loop block, shutting off the Tearalaments portion of the deck, weakening the Despia portion of the deck, and it would have just been a slow walk to victory. So, surprise, we were actually showing one bonus game because the other games were kind of short, and while I wanted to explain as much as I could, they were fairly basic gameplay-wise. So this is just kind of going to be a cool showcase of playing under Masquerade Dragon and how much you can accomplish with your 8,000 life points. And really the point of this replay is, don't be afraid to use your life points as a resource. This is not a game 1 situation. As you can see, our opponent has sided in Zombie World. We have sided in Lightning Storm to match it. This is also, I forget if I just mentioned it or not, sorry if I did, this is against a pure Despia deck, not a Despia branded. So, you know, just standard stuff. Ice Jade, or Ice Blade. I always mix up the name on that card. They're going to make Predaplant Dragostapelia. This is not the game I mentioned, by the way, about the Dragostapelia thing. That's going to be in another full match, probably. So they're going to fire off Zombie World, use Albion. So, knowing this is branded in red, really they have two options. They can go into Masquerade Dragon, or they can go into Guardian Chimera. We are going to try to bait them into going into an early Masquerade Dragon by just kind of activating stuff and not committing anything to field before we Lightning Storm them. We also don't really care about Dragostapelia because we have Advent, we can dodge around. We don't know about the Mercurier in their hand, but it ends up not mattering. And we'll fire off a Duality. This is also, too, just in case this is an Ash Blossom, we're really trying to bait it out. We are going to grab Map, so we are basically insulated against everything. So, because they used Ad Libitum, they are going to get that back. So, like I said, don't be afraid to use your life points as a resource. Watch how this goes. So So we're going to send an Eaglin, get the Rabina. I do feel very safe from Ash Blossom at this point, just because we have fired off 2 pot cards. They've both resolved, but we are going to attempt to play under it as much as we can. That's perfect. We were hoping they would do that so that we can create an Ash Blossom block for our Eaglin. We are going to open with the Eaglin, block it with the Rabina, and we are going to go ahead and grab Rise Up. We grabbed M-Pen off of the Advent just in case. The long and short of it is Ryza can be made with just M-Pen, so we wanted to be in a situation where that was possible if they Mirror Jade at a weird spot. So Stree is going to get the negation from the Mercurier, and they are going to shotgun the Ice Jade Dragon. Mirror Jade, whatever. Fortunately, we do have the Toucan to continue our plays. And it is going to be very relevant that Ryza can be made with just M-Pen. So we are going to forego using any of the recovery effects because while I'm not concerned about using my life points as a resource because we are going to lock the game this turn, I don't want to take unnecessary risks when I don't have to. We have enough birds in hand to play on our opponent's turn anyway, so. Rare time where I'm going to leave Ryza on the field just so that I can clear everything else, and we're going to put a poly on top of the deck because we are going to clear this and that poly is going to be a dead draw. And we specifically grabbed Ash earlier because I wanted to stop any follow-up play from, depending on what they sent off of the Mirror Jade effect. They sent that, we can Ash it, and that is going to be the game. Okay, I lied. So we're going to be doing one more match replay. I thought this was a really fun one to show how Floowander can really burn through various floodgate effects if you're really clever about it. Also, my favorite part of this matchup was in game 2 when I said thinking and the opponent said what Floowander players think. So let's watch this quick duo. Okay, so we are firing this off early to go into map. So we're playing around Ash this way, whereas, you know, we could have tried to go Eaglin into Rabina, but that would have lost to Ash Blossom. We probably would have been okay because we could have just done Advent on whatever got ashed, gone into map from there, but that then loses to an Imperm on the next one. So it's we're kind of playing around hand traps a little wonkily, but just in a slightly different order. So we're going to do this. We are going to actually banish an M-Pen here. This is just to make sure. I'm assuming at this point they do not have Ash Blossom because generally speaking, Advent will eat the Ash Blossom because it can search map and map can get around the Ash Blossom. So we're doing it in this order. If Eaglin grabs the M-Pen, perfect. If Eaglin eats an Imperm, we lose the double Imperm regardless. At least this way we can go Rabina, get the Toucan, and then get the M-Pen we banished. And if they are hard saving the Ash, you know, we have the block in Rabina for the Eaglin, and it doesn't matter at that point if Rabina gets Ashed because we'll just use our game mechanic summon for M-Pen. Oof, that was a mouthful of a sentence. Alright, so just standard Floowander stuff. We don't have D-Shifter protection, so we are going to search Barrier Statue. It's a blind game 1 situation. So, just kind of taking it a little lax. And obviously, we search Streaming Town, set it. So we're in a really good spot. Our opponent's going to fire a Fish Sonar, fine. They are going to fire a Pod Duality, so now we are safe in the knowledge that they can't special summon for the turn. They're going to grab Torrential Tribute. They're going to set 3. We are going to fire this off because we're going to start trying to chew through this back row and set up on next turn to completely chew through the back row. So what we're going to do is go Eaglin, block with Rabina. Eaglin, we are going to grab Apex Avion here. We are going to summon Rabina. Rabina, we are going to get our Toucan. Toucan, we are going to recover the M-Pen. We're going to Tribute 2, get the M-Pen, block with Toucan. We are going to grab Unexplored Winds. Now we are going to normal summon the Ryza here. We're going to spin back one of them. We're also going to put the M-Pen back on top of the deck as well. This is so we can put the Ryza back in with Unexplored Winds to turn Eaglin alive again. But this is just for fun with Unexplored Winds on our next turn if we need it. So they are going to normal summon here, beat over our Barrier Statue. Totally fine. They fired off Duality, so we're not really concerned about anything. We are going to fire off Unexplored Winds. At this point, our opponent is going to surrender, but just what we would have done from here is we would have hard summoned Apex Avian using M-Pen and one of the Torrential Tributes. If the other Torrential Tribute went off, great, we negate it with Apex Avian, and then we can do full combo with Map. Probably actually OTKing from here. I would have to plan out the combo in my head, but either way, we are completely in a position of winning the game. We can also, if we want to get really fancy, go into a Ryza, put the barrier statue back, and then resummon it with Rabina if we want to even establish that. So that was game 1. Let's take a look at game 2. Okay, so going into game 2, we have opened up Dimension Shifter, but not a whole lot else, so we are very dependent on whatever we pull off the top. Unfortunately, Eaglin Toucan is not a valid opening combination of birds. Our opponent has open Foolish Burial Goods, which will lose the D-Shifter, which will proceed to lose the Called by the Grave, unfortunately. So, like I just said, again, we are very dependent on what we pull off the top here. This is also going to be a good example of not letting a misclick screw up the rest of your game and rethinking and playing through it properly. So I'll point that out when it happens. Our opponent's going to fire off Foolish Burial Goods. Great thing to chain a D-Shifter to. Unfortunately, they will hit it with the Called by the Grave. They're going to banish that, get a water monster, fire off Legendary Ocean, normal summon this guy. So just a quick explanation for, they're going to search this, which lets them summon more fish. So just a quick explanation of what this guy does. Basically, as long as Ubi is on the field, you can only control one non-water monster at a time. This functions like a there can be only one, where if I have a water and a wind, I can't tribute summon them away for another wind, because I would be attempting an illegal summon under that condition. So we rip the best possible draw off the top in Advent of Adventure, and our opponent has nothing to counter this. So we are going to banish one of our M-Pens, and grab Rabina. Normal summon Rabina, we really only have one choice here. We're going to get the Stree. Stree, we're going to banish away our Advent so we can recover it later, and we are going to put an M-Pen on the field. This is where we are going to misclick, unfortunately. We are going to search Unexplored Winds instead of Dreaming Town, so we do have to adjust our entire game plan from here. They're going to fire that off, get rid of the Umi to summon more monsters. So we're just going to hit over that anyway. We're going to banish the Toucan for an additional chain block. We are going to fire off Unexplored Winds, and we're going to get a little greedy, but at this point we kind of have to, because this is going to let them search for Sea Stealth Attack, which is going to let them activate an Umi, which is going to turn the floodgate back on. So we're kind of just hoping to draw anything we sided in. We are going to pull a red reboot off the top, which is very good, and a Dimension Shifter, which is also very good. We're going to fire off the Dimension Shifter because our graveyard is somehow empty still. They're going to grab the Sea Stealth Attack, they're going to set 2 and pass. We're going to draw Called by the Grave off the top. We are going to let this resolve, because it doesn't really matter. There's no reason to red reboot it, because we don't have anything that we can really do from this position. So they're going to get the Yumi, the floodgate is back on. We are going to hold the Called by the Grave, though, in our hand, because I don't want to risk anything happening to it, because we can Call by the Grave the copy of this that's in their graveyard to turn off the floodgate when we're ready. Unfortunately, Sea Stealth Attack, there we go. They are going to potentially be able to clear our M-Pen on their turn. So they're going to throw that in defense to play around the floodgate. They're going to activate that. That basically just lets them special summon at the start of the damage step. And for some reason, they are going to fire off Pot of Duality here, preventing them from special summoning. They're going to grab Fish Sonar for an additional search. They're going to search for that jellyfish thing. They're going to forego attacking. I think the logic here is they want to keep the M-Pen on the field to keep me locked in from really doing much anything else or going into another M-Pen. Fortunately, we pull the out to the floodgate in Eaglin, and Called by the Grave will close it out. So now from here, we are just going to rip the field apart with Unexplored Winds. So Stree, we're going to banish our Called by the Grave just to get it out of there if we want to start doing a D-Shifter loop, but we are not going to have to. Now under Toucan, we are going to grab the M-Pen, tribute away the Sea Stealth Attack so that we can start attacking. Sea Stealth Attack has already activated its effect to protect the back row from destruction. That will be slightly relevant in a moment. Apex Avian, we're going to get rid of the unknown back row. and just recover the Eaglin for next turn. We did properly search Screaming Town this time. They are going to attempt to special summon Sea Stealth 2. We are going to negate it. It won't be destroyed because of Sea Stealth attack. The reason I want to negate that is I'm not particularly worried about them summoning anything. Their Floodgate monster is turned off for the turn and into the next turn, so summoning that's whatever. It's because mostly I want the Apex Avian back in my hand because it's going to act as removal via Unexplored Winds for next turn and be another negate again. So I'll forego doing a little bit of additional damage next turn to really hit harder the turn after. So that's fine. We'll just clear these two out. We will forget to attack with Stree, but it's not a big deal. So that is going to come back as per Sea Stealth attack. It is still turned off because Called by the Grave extends into this turn as well. So we do have to clear all of this on this turn. They're going to normal summon this jellyfish, which has a negation effect as long as Umi is on the field. Fortunately, we do have a chain block in Toucan for the Eaglin, and we still have a search in the deck for Eaglin. Eaglin, we are going to search for Ryza here. They are going to negate Toucan coming back to our hand. That is completely irrelevant at this point. We're going to tribute away their Floodgate monster for Apex Avian. They have already normal summoned here. So if they can figure out a way to try to special summon into another one of these, we do still have Apex Avian to negate again. We are going to flip this face down. And at this point, they will surrender. We could have red rebooted any traps from here. We had Ryza, and we could have also shuffled back Ryza and researched it with Eaglin. So we ended that in a very, very strong spot. So that has been a updated showcase of some Floowandereeze gameplay. I just wanted to kind of show off using the deck with 2 M-Pens since that is a new addition for me to the deck. I was playing one. I still think you can maybe get away with one, but I'll openly admit 2 is better. I had also swapped out DD Crow for a Toucan, as you can see in the first 3 games in this replay. But I have since swapped it back out for DD Crow because DD Crow is also very good against Tearlaments. And this is actually my second time recording this outro because the first time I did it, I did not have those last 2 games and I updated the deck a little bit between them and the original one. So if you liked what you saw and you learned something, don't forget to drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel for even more, and if you want to help us out that little bit extra, check out the link in the description to pick yourself up a playmat, and I will catch you all later.